morning, Viewpoint, the program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. Well, politicians off the drafting table this morning. We had some elections. We're not going to worry about talk about that. We have something really important this morning to talk about. We have perspectives, and we have personalities. Two of them, each in their own right. Some personalities. Let's start out first and foremost with kudos. Jim, right in your own backyard. Young Dave Kindred, sports writer of note from Atlanta, had a nice little write-up in the this morning paper about recognitions that he's had and so forth. And one of the recognitions Dave acquired during his long and very productive career, very professional young man, he got the Red Smith Award. And Red Smith was a great sports writer. And that's kind of like the holy grail as far as sports writing is concerned, to get that recognition. So to Jim's hometown boy, Dave Kindred, we doff our collective hats. And let's get right down to business, because we have something really important this morning. Unless you had something trite to say.
Always. None other than. Well, I got to find new friends. Really, some of these old ones are really wearing out.
I thought I'd slip that in, Jim.
Well, he said he didn't sleep last night. Now I know why. He was up trying to think of something nasty to say. It deserves your right. Okay, where were you a year ago Saturday night? Mr. Dom Dalpoas, Mr. Dennis Schrader.
Well, I was at a birthday party, as a matter of fact, and I got a call from the security company, and they said that the alarm had went off at the Oasis Senior Center.
No kidding.
And we had a leak in the back, and I thought, wow, that's just that normal thing. I'll go in there and reset that. So I told the family I was going to go in and put the fire out at the Oasis and come back to the party, because I thought I just reset it. Well, lo and behold, it wasn't that. It was an actual lightning strike and subsequent fire. And I honestly stayed there for a little while, but I couldn't bear just to sit there and watch that building destroyed. So I left and came back and forth, that kind of thing.
And I don't suppose the firemen would let you help.
No.
They're not much into that.
No, I'm not a very good professional firefighter.
Yeah.
Well, that's a tragic day for
how awful.
The Oasis folks, and particularly the folks who use the Oasis so much. You had a real regular clientele in there day in and day out, and so they were dispossessed. And happily, you were able to forge an agreement with St. John's United Church of Christ, and I thought that seemed to work out very well for you. On balance,
there needs to be a lot of kudos given to that church,
absolutely.
That congregation, because in reality they helped save the organization in the center, because we were able to find a home and really start back some programs that we were...
Yeah, while you were inconvenienced to a big degree, you were able to keep the thread alive. Yes. And so you didn't lose continuity. And
well, we've lost a lot of momentum. We've lost a lot of different aspects of the hometown feature that we had at downtown Lincoln. We've lost those things, and we may have lost those forever. I'm not sure. But we're going to try to rebound here as best we can.
You know, I've heard tell in various areas that, oh my goodness, you just don't want to be across the highway because people won't come. Well, give me a break. They can all find their way to Wally World.
Yeah.
So if they want to take advantage of the Oasis, and many people in this area do, they'll get there. I don't think across the highway is the barrier that the Great Wall of China is.
Well, it's been described as the abyss. We're out in the abyss.
Are we?
Well, it's probably, for some, it's a legitimate complaint. We did hear this when we were reviewing sites and trying to select a site. I actually contacted the Logan Mason Public Transportation directors to ensure that if any senior who wants to participate or wants to be part of the Oasis Senior Center, that program will provide them transportation to come out there. But just as you indicated, there's the Walmart, there's this Steak and Shakes, there's all those businesses out there, and I see seniors at those businesses frequently.
Surely. So
yeah. I'm hoping that it was just an initial fear, because people don't like change, people don't like we had such a nice little area in downtown Lincoln. The atmosphere was absolutely wonderful there. And to move out on your own where you've got 4 acres of property and more grass to mow than we've ever had in our lifetime.
Well, there wasn't much grass uptown.
Or snow to plow, or a parking lot, and all those kinds of things. You know, it's quite a change for
However,
lots.
on the bright side, you have a parking lot.
Yes, we do.
And so that's very nice. And you have a, quote, new, unquote, building that I'm sure, now you said it's not really totally done yet, but then nothing ever is. But it's up and running, and you must be happy. And my hat's off to you. Man, in 1 year, you got yourself relocated. I think that's phenomenal.
Well, I think it's part of having a good board.
Well, I wanted to address that, Dennis. As a board member, you folks had a lot of serious, big-time decisions to make, not the least of which was finding another home right away, which I thought that was done with great alacrity. I mean, you forged this work out with the St. John's folks, I thought, rather quickly. And so you had an immediate go-to place. Then you started studying. Dennis, could you take us kind of down the drill about the sites that you don't have to be specific about sites, but in general how you worked around this problem of finding a site?
Well, we talked to the membership, and they wanted parking. They didn't want to jump curbs anymore. You know, we've got a lot of people that have wheelchairs, walkers, whatever, and it was just, I think that was number one on the list, wasn't it, Dom? Was parking.
Parking and easy access.
Well, you sure answered that question in a hurry. In spades.
And that's what we got with Rusty's. I was kind of opposed to Rusty's to start out with because I like the visibility downtown.
Yeah.
I like the old building. I mean, we'd even been approached before about, if you ever want to sell this building, let us know.
Tell them they can have it now.
But anyway,
been taken care of now.
Yeah, because it was just a historic building. It was a beautiful building.
Oh, it is.
And it had an atmosphere when you walked in, you just felt calm. You know, and that's what we tried to do at the new building. Yeah,
and you know,
we tried to bring some of that into the new building.
As a quick aside, we're just fortunate that the young man who has bought the building is the man who bought it. Under other circumstances, I can see that corner being raised, and what a disastrous thing that would be to lose that architectural gem.
Right.
So down the road, I may not be around here watching that, but that's going to be a real anchor on the courthouse square. It's going to be
absolutely. I agree.
I'm delighted to see.
Across from the new theater.
Yeah.
So that's going to be nice too.
But you had, did you have a number of possibilities that you considered, or not?
We looked at what, maybe 12, 14?
There were actually 18 active sites that that the board looked at.
Okay.
And the thing to say about, one other thing I'd like to say about the board is that these are all volunteers.
Yeah.
And although the fire can destroy all your property you want, but the heart, soul, and just the blood flow of that Oasis runs through volunteers, and I couldn't have asked for any better volunteers than was on that board, or for that matter, the volunteers that participate at the center. Without those guys, the center would not exist in any way, shape, form, whether we had a fire or didn't have a fire.
Yeah.
And these guys work hard day in and day out without any kind of recognition, any kind of monetary factors. They're just there constantly. So there was like 18 different sites that the board looked at. It was all narrowed down. There were all pros and cons put to each site. As the board started to analyze each of those sites, the focus became more narrow, and finally it became to the 2810 Woodlawn Road site seemed to have the most to contribute to it. And it also has probably a nice expense bill that goes with it too, because it's a nice large building. We don't know exactly what the heating, cooling, and all of these expenses are going to be quite yet, but
it'll be significant.
Yeah, they'll be a large part. So
which should be on natural gas and city, you don't use propane, surely?
No, we're on natural gas.
How about sewage?
We're on the city sewers. We're all part of the city out there.
Okay, well that helps.
Yeah, it all helps. I mean, we're excited about what the new center has to offer. We really are. We have more space than we've ever had before in our lives. The board was very anxious to look at some progressive states that design senior centers. Believe it or not, Colorado is one of those progressive states. I wouldn't have thought that when we first got into it, but Colorado is a very progressive state for seniors. And we tried to pattern what we've developed and what Janice and the rest of the board had looked at as far as blueprints and the rest to model ourselves after a progressive state, and I think we did. I think we came close.
Does that mean we're going to have a target range in the back? Let them shoot AK-47?
Well, we've had
and what about
yet to be developed?
We're going to have a pot smoking room.
Pot smoking room, yeah.
All of those things.
Well, that's how we have to fund it.
That's
right?
Colorado.
All those things are in the planning.
Yeah.
After all, that is Colorado. Are we going to frisk the seniors as they come in, see if they're packing?
Well, that's going to be part. We've got metal detectors and things like that.
That just gives me a bad mental picture.
Dennis, how many are on your board, sir?
21 members.
21
yes.
is an active board, and you meet weekly, or monthly, I'm sorry.
Monthly, yes. And I'm just
not right
retired
now.
from the board. I'm just a work in progress here. So
Yeah, well, good for you. Thanks for your service on that. You know, there obviously the Oasis and its functions fill a real need for some older folks. And if I ever get to be old, I may go out there and start enjoying that, but I'm not there yet. No, seriously, do you have a clientele, for want of a better word, you have a whole bunch of regulars who really, that's a big day, a big thing in their day. They look forward to going down there. And what a void that fills for those folks.
Oh yeah, we have certain people that are regulars, and then we offer services for just the general senior population of Logan County and Lincoln, really. So
Social Security and tax help type affairs.
All of those, all the programs we had in place will all be continued in one shape, form, or another. And then we have other programs that we're trying to establish. We've reached out to genealogy. We've reached out to the Master Gardener program to do some educational things. We've reached out to folks who do wellness activities there. We have developed a little bit of an exercise or wellness room so that people can kind of work out. And there's just the thing I told staff is that we used to say, well, we can't do certain things just because, and then we list the reasons we couldn't do things. The mantra now is that how can we accomplish whatever it is that we want to do? Because we certainly have the physical space. We have all of those things.
Yeah, your folks go out there not just to play Parcheesi and Bunko or whatever those things are. You have a lot. You mentioned the genealogy factor here. I think that should be a rather interesting adjunct to the things that you offer, because a lot of us can spend a lot of time doing it. Yeah, I guess a true genealogist, they can just get lost in the records and the archives. But you have access, different ways for people to get into the internet and so forth to do their own research. To
do their own family research. I think one of the things about people and they always pass on their heritage through stories from one generation to the next. And oftentimes, I said this publicly before, that I wish I would have listened more carefully to my mom and dad's stories so that I could accurately pass them on. But unfortunately, I didn't. But and that's important to pass on from generation to generation, is just how you got to where you are.
I think your regret is universal.
Yeah.
I think my folks are gone, of course. And I think now, every once in a while, I think, I want to call my mom and ask how that worked. And then you think, darn me, you know? So if anybody is listening that's younger than me, younger than 75, don't miss an opportunity to listen, or you'll be sorry, won't they, Dom?
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, speaking of which, 648-5510, 648-5510. Somebody might have a question of Dennis Schrader or Dom Dalpoas regarding the new Oasis, like Phoenix has risen from the ashes.
There you go.
And I haven't stepped inside. I've taken a look at the pictures that have been posted online. It looks very, very intriguing and very attractive.
Well, Dennis has a large part to do with all of that. I'm not a very good decorator, so Dennis, if you have any questions about all of that, Dennis is the guy to take you through all of that.
Yeah.
And Mr. Logan helped him make a sign, didn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
I was looking for someone to redo that sign. I was out the rec working out, and I was talking to Roy, and I said, "Do you know of any gentlemen out here?" And he said, "Well, my dad
sure
loves to do that." And of course, I went over to Ed's home and talked to him. And most all the furniture in his home, he made himself. It's
really?
Beautiful. It's beautiful things in his home. He put in all of his kitchen cabinets. He made every one of his kitchen cabinets, which are just phenomenal. You know, I didn't know that Ed Logan did that. I'd known him for years.
Yeah.
And that sign...
Edgar's a pretty quiet fellow.
Yes, he is. He's very quiet.
just goes about what he does well, very well, and that's that.
And he was glad to do it for us. He really was, you know. And there's people out there that, if you ask, you can usually get them to do things for you. I mean, we've had volunteers come out and clean and help with things that I never ever thought that they would do, you know. But as long as you ask, they will be there. And
volunteers are just cut above the average bear.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Absolutely. Well, this we hired a decorator, and the reason we hired the decorator was, you know, it's a big membership, and they had asked me if I would chair the committee for the decorating, and I said yes, I'd be glad to, if you hire the decorator, because when you have a big membership, you have a lot of opinions. And I just wasn't able to deal with that many opinions on, well, I've got drapes in the basement you can use, or I've got a couch in the den you can use.
Exactly.
You know, we didn't want it to end up looking like Mission Mart, you know? So the decorator had contacted you a year prior in regards to redoing the old Oasis.
Oh.
And Dom had everything in his file, and he said, well, here's somebody we can talk to. And they came from St. Louis, 2 ladies. And Chelsea was the one that mainly worked with us. But, you know, it's like everything else. And Bill can tell you this because he was in the decorating field.
Right.
They can save you a lot of money. And they did. And they did. They were able to save
by knowing
money
resources and
furniture, chairs and tables for the activity room, and carpeting and things. I mean, they just have the knowledge. And when you use those people that are good at what they do, you do save money, you know, and we did. In fact, I think she returned, what, $2,800 of her fees, her fees were minimal, actually, for what she did. Because I did a lot of the legwork. I was able to do it. You know, we've been going to State Farm and looking in the warehouse for the freebies, as we call them, because they've been gracious to Rick Ham and State Farm. They've just really been good to us, haven't they, Don? Yes. And that's where our initial furniture came from the offices at the church.
You just go through a fire one time and you appreciate insurance.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Oh, my goodness, yeah.
I could have kissed our insurance agent on the cheek, I'm telling you.
Yeah. When I lived in Sterling Rock Falls, one of our funeral homes burnt down, and the owner lived upstairs, and they lost everything in the fire. And she said, you know, I went to get a pair of toenail clippers and didn't even own them. You know, simple things like that that you don't even think about, you know. Well, it's the same way. We're starting from scratch here, aren't we, Tom?
Well, our insurance here is our sponsors. And if we don't stop for a minute or two to recognize our sponsors, we'll be out of business here. So we'll take a break, Mr. Ash, when you're ready. Back live in the studios here, WLCN 96.3 on the hill in Atlanta, Illinois. Our producer engineer, Mr. James Ash, has produced all the correct button pushing and so forth. Our guest this morning with Mrs. Busby and myself, Dennis Schrader, a retired board member of the Oasis, and thank you, Dennis, for all that service.
But active volunteer.
And still a volunteer, absolutely. And Dom Dalpoas, whose son runs that healing hall out there on the highway, called the hospital, I believe. Don's been the director of the Oasis for a number of years down there, and has done a great job. He had a frustrating year. Since a year ago we had the big fire, and they put this thing together, and they're now back in their own home out there on the old former Rusty's clubhouse out on the north side of Woodlawn Road. What's the number out there, 15 something or
2810?
2810. All right, well, that's the last. It's the last stop before going to Beck's Travel Service, I guess.
Yes, it is.
Well, in this business of putting the dominoes back on the table in the correct order, what has been, surely there must have been several most important things, but what would be one of the most important decisions that you had after acquiring the location and just deciding on the location? There'll be a lot. There's so many decisions that have to be made. I suspect it's difficult to come up with one particular one.
Now, the most, I think, in my opinion, the most difficult decision was getting lots of input and bringing our plans for that building into perspective as to what we saw as a vision for future generations of seniors and how we could best meet the needs of our current generation of seniors. That was, we had to get lots of input. The board had to review, I think we reviewed 8 different drafts of how we would want to remodel that building or how that building could be remodeled to suit the needs of the seniors. So that was probably our biggest decision after we purchased the location. Second biggest decision was to make sure that we could get through the winter with our heating and air units as to what kind of shape they were in. They really weren't in, the building itself had deteriorated and wasn't in very good shape inside or outside. So we did shore that up and made it through the winter, and we're at a point now where we're kind of open for business last Monday, and it's a nice, beautiful center. It's really, there's nothing like this center in central Illinois, I can tell you. I was just at Pekin yesterday. We had a card challenge. I drove a group of seniors there to partake in a card challenge, and I can tell you their center's nice, don't get me wrong. And Springfield's and Taylorville's and Decatur's are all very nice centers, but there's nothing quite like the center that the seniors of Logan County have now. Nothing.
Now, in that conversation that you just had with us here, you mentioned going somewhere else to compete. These seniors go in this case, they went to Pekin to compete in a card challenge, you say? Is that the name of what you use? And so that's, I suspect that's a thing that a lot of these older people look forward to doing, getting out on their own like that with a little bus ride going to wherever it is and competing against other seniors in whatever.
It really does. I mean, it helps seniors get to know other people from different communities. It's in a nice, friendly, for the most part, game of cards, and it's not so much the competition.
I like that, for the most part.
For the most part. We've had our issues with all these things. Everything I'm telling you, we've had issues with.
Oh, sure.
But for the most part, it's just the idea of socializing with others and talking with others and kind of growing as a person, because lots of seniors, as we just discussed, transportation can be an issue. So going out of the community, if you don't have family here where you're hooking up with to go out of the community, sometimes that's a problem too. So,
but you have your nice van.
We have a nice van, very, very nice.
Yes, van. That was due to the generosity of the Woods Foundation, which is a wonderful
and many
thing.
Other contributors.
And they've also done more than that, and many other folks who have chipped in big time. The transportation issue from downtown to out there. Let's just hit on that just briefly, Mr. Dalpoas. At some point in time, will there be a schedule where seniors can drop themselves off at say the old Kresge corner or wherever downtown, and then be transported out there? Is that in the offing as a potential?
Well, there were two ideas that we had. One was that we wanted to hook up with the Logan Mason Public Transportation District and see if they could help us with transporting seniors. And the second was the actual use and utilization of the van that we have. We can develop schedules. We just need to develop and recruit additional volunteers to kind of make those kinds of runs for us. But there would be nothing stopping us from initiating and doing those kinds of programs.
But your folks who drive the bus, they have to be qualified. Just Joe Smith can't get on that bus and bring it downtown.
That's right.
No, it takes a regular driver's license, but you have to have what they call a J05 restriction. The J05 restriction means that you can transport very young people, or you can transport old people, and we happen to fall in the old people category. So, but it's kind of an intimidating restriction. It sounds like an intimidating restriction, but it's really not too bad. You just go into the driver's license facility and take our van and go through a little driving test, and if you can drive your own vehicle, you can more or less drive the van. And
so many people have vans and SUVs anymore. I'm kind of like a fossil with my sedan, you know. You just don't see them often.
Right.
You talk about all the input that you've gotten. Did you survey your membership? How did you encourage the people to tell you, you know, I think it would be kind of nice if we could have a room that would be a wellness room, for instance? How did you learn of their desires?
Well, we looked at, we did do surveys. We sent out informational surveys to members, and we also included as part of that Facebook. I'm not familiar with all of these things, but anyway,
he is.
Yeah, okay,
Bill can talk those words.
We did all that to try to gather as much, and again, we did a lot of research in terms of what other states and what other senior centers offered, and what the federal government mandated towards their health and fitness for the generations that come. And the Wellness Center was really top on the list. Education for seniors, wellness, and transportation, our trips and travel are the three major concerns for seniors of this generation and the generation that's coming, the ones that are in their 50s now or 55 through 59. So we tried to pattern our needs kind of in that area. And we developed, I mean, with, like Dennis was saying, with the board's help, with lots of different input. Even the board would have feelers to go out to different folks and ask those folks what they saw as a need for a senior center or what they would take advantage of. Overwhelmingly, we came up with the Wellness Center.
Good. At one point, I think you had what was called Meals on Wheels. I don't know if it's still called that or not. Are you going to have a service like that at all there?
Well, now the Meals on Wheels program is a program that's out of the community action. Right. We certainly referred many folks to that particular program, but that's not a program that's housed within us or that we govern or that we do anything with in terms. It's a wonderful program. Seniors really need to take advantage of that program, and we've encouraged folks to do so. What we're partnering with Community Action is probably providing some meal location on site at the new Oasis. So they'll be working with us, or we'll be working with them, however you say that, in terms of getting that initiated and started, and hopefully we can offer some healthy nutritional meals and have that for the seniors.
Okay. If a family wanted to have a little birthday party for Grandpa Og, do you have facilities out there that can be rented? And what would be
to that. Dennis was very instrumental in getting that part of it, so I'm going to let Dennis speak to that. He's got that.
All right, Dennis.
Yes, we do, to answer your question. Yes, we're going to have a nice room. The West Room, if you remember, at Rusty's.
Yes, that was the Far West Room.
Yes, the Far West Room. We've recarpeted. We put in all new drywall, and all the ceiling was cleaned. And it's a beautiful room to be used for any type of reception.
Wedding receptions, if you wished.
Yes.
That's
and then,
available
as Don
for
calls
rent.
The dance floor, which was the wooden floor where they used to have the karaoke. That's an extension of that area. And we can have meetings in those two areas, the way the doors are set up. if we want. And of course, our boardroom that we call our boardroom is also a meeting room, and for small meetings and that. And we've already had people call and ask, when they can rent these places. So,
now here's a fundraiser for you, Dennis and Dominic. In the Depression, they had dance-a-thons. Now we could have a dance-a-thon out there and see how long we old codgers can stay on our feet.
It's come together really well. It really has. So yes.
You were just saying when we were off the air about yesterday was quite a day. You were hanging blinds, and was that a stereotypical day? We kind of cut you off at the knees because we went back on the air.
That's no problem at all.
Tell us what happened.
Well, we were hanging blinds in the offices because we have windows similar to this. Dom wanted a window, and we have a special use room, which is used for veterans when they come. They come, once a month?
Once a week.
Once a week, okay, on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And then, unfortunately, the lady that does toenail trimming, she got scheduled for the same day somehow. But I mean, it's just been a rough week getting things back in order. So she was over in what we call the gift shop. We have a gift shop now.
Oh, yes.
And Linda Gephardt had always taken care of that, and I guess she's going to do it again for us. And so that lady was in there, and then we had over in the other corner, we had in front of the windows were ladies doing quilting. We had people sitting on the couch watching TV. We had people playing cards. I mean, there was just activities everywhere, and that's exactly what we want. And then people coming in, they were interested in how it looked. They would sit down and visit it. We have a reception desk, and they would sit and ask questions, and then they'd like a tour, So one of us would each take turns and take people all the way through. It's a big building.
Yes,
it is. And it takes a while to show people through.
Sure.
But we're going to have our open house July 12th from it's 1 to 4. Is that right?
Yes.
And our 30th anniversary is also going to be that day. Oh. So we're going to combine the two events, and Wally Reisteck, I believe, is the chairman of that. And so we're anxious to show people, what it's all about.
Oh,
it's beautiful. But we have a beautiful computer lab, and Elvira Fleming left us considerable amount of money in her will.
Good for her.
And yes, and we had just purchased brand new computers and all new lighting in the old building when we had the fire. The lighting, I bet, wasn't there, a week, was it, that it was finished?
Oofda.
But we'd use that money. But this room is designated towards her, and it's just a beautiful room. And we've got 5 computers, I believe, for the computer lab that was purchased with insurance money, and then we've got 4 offices total, Dom's office, and then a secretarial's office, a treasurer's office, because they do taxes every year. Yes. So we needed a place with privacy. And so Shirley Jordan is our current treasurer, and she has a table in there with chairs where people can sit down and be comfortable doing their taxes, and then the special use room that we use for whatever that we need it for at the time.
So the organization per se serves a great cross-section of activities and needs, and I emphasize and needs, for the citizens in this county.
Yeah.
You do have, it's really a far-reaching program encompassing a lot of different things that ought to keep people alive and alert and active.
Well, when I first got started at the Oasis, I call it the best kept secret in Lincoln. And how I got started was we used to take the van and take trips down to Springfield through the funeral home to the Funeral Directors Museum, which is no longer there. But we would have schedule, 2 or 3 a year.
That's kind of a modern thing to do, to take old people down to that.
Yeah, well, at least let them see what's there, and they enjoy it. And then we'd take them to lunch at the smorgasbord place. Yeah. And but now the museum's no longer there. Unfortunately, the funding just wasn't there. Yeah. But that's how I got started with it, and then Wally Reisteck managed to get me on the board. So, and we've gone from there. We've come a long ways in those 4 years, that's for sure. So,
go ahead, please.
I was just going to say those Reifstecks are dedicated people. Let me say this about that.
I don't know where Tony gets all the energy.
Tony, you need 2 of them on every board.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah,
as the board wrestled with decisions, Dennis, is there one that comes to mind that required a lot more thought and input and discussion by members of the board of directors? It's such a
okay. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. As a matter of fact, one that comes to mind for me, it may not be the top, but one that comes to mind is when you compete against the Legion home, the Knights of Columbus, for receptions.
Yes.
Do you allow liquor in the building? Okay. So we've had a lot of back and forth with attorneys and whatever in regards to allowing liquor for receptions. And you know, it's very costly to do
license
that.
And so forth.
Oh, the licensing
Insurance.
and everything. Our policy was always no liquor in the building whatsoever. And so we've kind of been reviewing that. It's still under review. It really hasn't been totally decided, but I think now it's down to beer and wine only. And it's my understanding is this, if this isn't right, you tell me. My understanding is if you don't sell it, you're okay to do that. It would come under the person that rents the space, homeowner's insurance. Okay. As long as they don't sell it, as long as they're giving it away, we can do that. But it's strictly beer and wine. And that's the two things right now that I think they're reviewing as far as policies.
Well,
so that's like Plan A.
Plan A, yes.
Yeah.
Sounds like that should be pretty sufficient.
Right, yeah. But we're just trying to compete against those places as well. I mean, that's income for the building. You know, to keep the lights on and the air on and everything else. So, and but that's been brought before the board several times.
When I posed that question, Mrs. Busby, it never occurred to me that subject would come up. I was just presumed, in my ignorance, as the guy says, that liquor would not be allowed out there.
Yeah, no, we're trying to do it, and we're trying to compete is what we're trying to do with the other place, because they're so busy. You know, we needed another facility because, I mean, a lot of times they'll book the reception at the Knights of Columbus before the rings are ever exchanged or whatever, you know, because they have to, you know, for the engagement rings.
But there are other things that don't require liquor. For instance, at ALMH, the Volunteer Services Department has a couple of luncheons a year for their membership, their auxiliary membership. Now, they don't drink much at lunch there, not so much. So that wouldn't even be an issue. So there are going to be other things, unlike that.
That's right. Well, even your chamber mixers, you know, is a perfect example. And we had talked about hosting the chamber at our old facility several times, and we're kind of torn by what are we going to do, because a chamber mixer usually has beer and wine, you know, and this time we're just considering more of that type of thing.
Well, you know, it's not going to be carved in stone out there. You can go with whatever Plan A ends up being, and if it doesn't work, change it.
That's right, yeah.
You know, nobody will die.
Well, the time ran out again on us. Before we close, we'll squeeze an extra minute from Mr. Ash. Either one of you would like to, or both, sum up our little discussion here about the great new facility out there for those folks who are old enough to go out. And by the way, what would be the youngest age that would go out there as a matter of interest? What, you have some people that are in their 50s or...
Oh, we have younger than that even.
Do you, Dominic?
Yeah, we have. There's really no restriction on it, just that you have to be a mature individual, and I met 10-year-olds that are very mature. I met 70-year-olds that aren't so mature.
Not so much.
Yeah, why are you looking at me?
Maturity is kind of a quagmire there. You can go anywhere with it.
Sit right there and look at me like that and say that.
Yeah. Well, I had to look at something.
When you said that was the gumball effect. That thought formed and came out your mouth before you got to process it.
Well, Dennis, do you have any last-minute comments you'd like to make, sir?
Well, I just hope people come out and enjoy the facility.
And the open house again
is July the 12th from 1 to 4. And the anniversary celebration, the 30th anniversary of the Oasis. So, and we've got a committee working on history, so it should be interesting.
We appreciate you guys coming out this morning. Our discussion this morning, folks, has been about aging and how you do that gracefully or not so gracefully as the case may be. In a lot of cases, that's not so gracefully. Way back in the mid-1600s, a French philosopher by the name of La Rochefoucauld said, People don't know how to be old. Maybe he's right. Thank you very much for Viewpoint.
Thank you.